I'm following these tides in a person's body, the tide will run up against what we call inertia, and there will be like a wiggling force. And so as your tide's moving through and clearing these inertias, you can experience, sometimes people will say they feel crooked on the table, whoop, like this. And so, or they'll get numbness in their fingers or in their toes, or they'll have like a shooting sensation, which is like a release of your nervous system.
Welcome to Holy Chit. I am your host, Christy Austin, here to remind you that you are whole. And Chit, a Sanskrit word for pure consciousness, the reason that I started this podcast. And today we have a very special guest. I'm super excited to introduce her. I've known her for quite a while, actually. And I'm excited to learn more about her story and how she got into what she does. Her name is Evelyn Olson, and she is a biodynamic craniosacral therapist. So I love how you have your setup and you can see the space that you actually work in, because it is a very calming space. I've been in that space before, and it's you can just feel the energy is relaxing as soon as you walk in those doors. It's like Evelyn, please introduce yourself and explain to us what biodynamic craniosacral therapy is.
So I'm Evelyn Olson, and biodynamic craniosacral therapy is actually a branch off of osteopathy. So originally it was called cranial osteopathy, and through several generations of teachers, it started being offered to massage therapists and other people to practice. So biodynamics is the science behind what innervates all living organisms. When your body degenerates, how it regenerates naturally. So it's our body's self-healing mechanism. And in biodynamic craniosacral therapy, the therapist will have a person lay on the table, and you can see my table in the back here. Normally, the person's laying on their back. Now, of course, if there's some sort of restriction and people aren't comfortable on their backs, we can also do it while someone's sitting in a chair. And then we just do simple handholds over a person's body according to what their tissues are showing us. And then there are releases that happen. They call it discharge. So that can feel like sparkling in my hands, or it can feel like a crispy feeling that's coming out of someone's body, or heat. So at the end of the session, normally a person will report that they feel like a sense of lightness or a sense of openness and calm. So it's a very personal therapy. So it's not something where the therapist at the end will translate everything for you. So sometimes people will pop up at the table and they're really excited, like, did you get any messages? Well, that's not what craniosacral therapy is. It's more about your internal journey and how you experience the work from the inside out. And there's a nice conversation at the end that we have where I can ask the person questions about what they are experiencing, and we can go from there.
So they ask you if you get any messages. Is that a normal thing that happens? Is that why people ask? Or
I think that's something that they bring in if they're very familiar with other modalities. I think that's something that they're looking for, like from, like a shamanism perspective or something like that. And some craniosacral therapists do have other training in other areas, and they might bring those things in, but that's not part of biodynamics in general. Yeah.
Okay. So when somebody comes to you, is it because of a physical pain or emotional, or what would you say? Does it help all of that? Physical, emotional?
Yeah, it helps everything. So it can, well, and as we know, emotional states affect our physical body. So if I become upset, or like right now, I'll speak to the fact that this is my first interview, so I'm a little nervous, so I feel a little bit of jitters happening in my chest and in my throat. So
Doing amazing.
Our emotional state definitely impacts our physiology. And if you are upset or stressed, you can hold it in your neck. So, yes, a
You
lot
can
of people,
tell people start doing this, their shoulders start rising, and it's like, okay, they need to relax.
yeah, shoulders as earrings. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So it just depends on the person. I, and obviously share these with permission, but I've had women clients who have come in who've experienced physical abuse from relationships. It's really good for that. I have some people who come in who are using it as a complement to their talk therapy because this is very, somatic and they don't need to speak anymore. So sometimes, when you're in a talk therapy, you get in these loops where you talk about the same thing over and over and over again, but nothing's actually being resolved because it's held in our tissues. So with biodynamics, that is allowed to shift. You start opening up those old patterns so things can release and then reorganize on your midline.
It sounds very much like Reiki. I practice Reiki. It said that the energy work, it sounds very much like that. The symptoms you were saying with the hot and cold, the tingling, all that is very common as well. But we're all energy, right? All of
Yeah.
us are energy. So it would make sense when you're starting to work on balancing that energy and something's out of whack that you're going to feel different sensations within the body. So would you share a little bit more about the sensations that you feel? You said the tingling, the heat, just so when someone comes to you, they're not alarmed by something that might happen or arise, or even crying, right? Crying is a normal reaction to laughing, crying. Thus, as emotions move around and energy moves around, it's very normal to release, from crying. I know when I do sessions on people with Reiki, they'll start crying. They're like, I don't know what's wrong. I don't know why my ears, I must have allergies.
Right.
It's
Yes.
like, no, you're releasing.
So when I'm doing holds with someone, I'm tracking what they call the tides. So tides are polyrhythmic. So there's really, really slow tides that move in and out at like a space of 20 minutes per inhale and exhale. So it's incredibly slow. And then there are other rhythms that are faster that will happen, one or two or more times per minute. So there's everything in between. So as I'm following these tides in a person's body, the tide will run up against what we call inertia, and there will be like a wiggling force. And so as your tide's moving through and clearing these inertias, you can experience sometimes people will say they feel crooked on the table, whoop, like this. And
Oh,
so, or they'll get numbness in their fingers or in their toes, or they'll have like a shooting sensation, which is like a release of your nervous system. So if you've ever, had a fright and you get the tingling in your hands, that rush, that can happen on the table, but it's a release. And some
nothing to be afraid of. That's normal.
nothing to
And
be
even
afraid
feeling crooked, that's all normal.
all totally normal, yes. And by the time you get up off of the table, obviously you're not feeling crooked and or anything like that. So as the tides are moving through the inertia in your body, they start to release and the tide will just feel more clear every time it's moving through. And then there's just like a sense of lightness. Sometimes there's an emotional component that comes with like that actual physical texture. And sometimes they're not. Like what you were saying when you're practicing Reiki, someone's eyes will start watering and they're going, oh, I must have allergies. And it's not allergies. And they're flummoxed by why am I crying, but I don't have the emotional like sensation behind it. And that's totally normal. Sometimes your body just needs to release and it doesn't need to have a story attached to it. It can just let it go and reorganize to health.
Very true, because I think as humans, we want to know why a lot of times. It's like when you break up with someone, you want to know why, what happened. We're fixers. We want to know, how do I fix this so that it doesn't happen again? Or, when we're releasing or crying, it's why, what's making this arise? So people can't just handle their emotions sometimes when they start crying. It's like, just let it happen. Sometimes I just cry just to let it out, just to let those emotions flow through me. And that's okay. You don't need to attach a story to everything. Sometimes you just need to give yourself permission to release.
Yes. And
Let
sometimes
go.
people will make very strange noises and they'll be embarrassed by it. And I'm saying, totally fine. I mean, I've had people that just all of a sudden will scream and then they are, oh no. And it's normal. And you can, it's the beauty of it is that every session is totally different. The same human being can get on the table and, be rolling around and have, vocal expressions one session, and the next session, it can just be this beautiful, quiet, like very still experience. So it just depends on what your body is ready and resourced to process at the time. There's sometimes people will come in and they have, this long history of abuse or whatever the case may be, and they are hoping that it will all be resolved in one session. And I'm not saying that can't happen. It can happen, but sometimes fast is not good. You don't want, 20 years of car accidents and trauma to be
I
coming
was just
out.
gonna say, you've been holding on to that trauma for how many years? Even if it happened as a child, that abuse happened as a child, you've been carrying that with you for years. So yeah, you want to release that slowly.
That's
Definitely.
right. Just slowly but surely, and your body knows when it's ready to release something, so it will release incrementally in a way where you're not re-traumatized or overwhelmed by the situation. That's part of the reason why I love biodynamics. It's not about forcing someone into health, it's about allowing them to move toward health at their own pace.
When they're ready on their time.
Yes,
Yeah, I
exactly.
love that. Nothing should be done with force. And I think we so often try to force ourselves. We get angry at ourselves for not getting over something, or sometimes it's okay to just allow yourself to feel what you feel and work through it at its own time. Evelyn, would you mind sharing with us? And it's up to you. You don't have to share anything you don't want, but share with us how you got into this. Maybe a personal story with how you got into biodynamic cranial therapy.
So I was in a vehicle accident and I crushed my L1, L2 vertebra. And so I had a cast from my shoulders to my hips. And, my husband and I had just gotten married. It was like 6 months after we got married. And, he's helping me to the bathroom in the middle of the night. So, it was a lot of change really, really quick. And I was in physical therapy and really having a lot of pain and struggles in recovery. And they moved me into water therapy and nothing was really shifting my experience of pain. So my friend was going to school for biodynamic craniosacral therapy and she needed clinical hours, so she said, I'll come over to your house and I'll do a practice session with you. And to be perfectly honest, the way that she described it, I wasn't expecting much. I mean, I love her dearly, so I thought, well, the very worst, I'll lay on the table and have a nice nap and we can have a chat, it'll be great. And I was so wrong. It was so incredible. She, threw a series of handholds at my feet and my abdomen, up at my head. I mean, everything shifted. There were tornadoes in my stomach. There was like electricity moving up my neck. My head started rolling around. And the way that it felt when my head started rolling around was that she was actually directing the movement of my head. And I told her, whatever you're doing feels really, really good. And she said, I'm not doing anything. I'm just supporting what your body is naturally doing. It's called unwinding. So through this whole session, it was incredible. I sat up off the table. I felt like I could breathe. And I didn't even realize at the time that I was struggling to breathe along with the other pain symptoms. I was really on lockdown. So I wasn't really reading what was happening in my body. So I just remember taking this beautiful breath and looking at her in amazement. And I thought, I'm going to do this for a living. This is incredible. It's gentle and it's powerful. And I felt like physically taller. So I was sharing with her. I said, oh my gosh, I feel taller. And at the time, my husband walked through the door from work and he was looking at us across the room and he goes, you look taller. I'm like, see, taller. So I mean, it was quite incredible. Yeah. So I was very inspired to pursue it.
That's amazing that you felt that much of a difference after the first session. You could feel that energy shift within you, the fact that you felt taller and were so passionate to now pursue it as a career yourself, because I think that makes the best practitioners
Yeah.
are the people who have gone through something and have experienced the healing themselves. That's why I got into yoga and meditation, is because that's what I needed for my mental state, from what I was going through. And so after having the experience, I'm like, this is what I want to do. This is what I want to share with others. This is why I'm on here today, for, to show people different healing modalities that they've never heard about. Biodynamic cranial sacral therapy. I guarantee you, most people have not heard about that.
I, I hadn't, yes,
Yeah.
until I experienced it. So yes.
And there's something for everyone. And what might work for me might not work for you. So it is kind of a trial and error, where we might go to physical therapy or go to the doctors, and it's not until we've tried all of those well-known things, going to the doctors, doing what they say, doing the physical therapy, and nothing works, that we then start going down the weird route. It's like, you hear this from someone, you've heard of Reiki, or you've heard of BCST. Did I say that
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
BCST. You've heard about these interesting therapies that you don't really quite understand, because let's admit it, it is uh, hard to absorb what it's doing exactly, what it's all about.
Well, and
Therapy, you go in there, they move your arms, twist you understand, okay, you're trying to realign me. You go into a chiropractor, they twist you, you're like, okay, they're trying to realign me. This where it's more uh energy work, it's harder to explain. It's harder to understand.
and
So just getting the information out there, and having that first experience where it's like, oh, wow, I don't know what you did, but I feel taller and I feel lighter and I feel like I can conquer the world and I feel like a whole new me, that right there hooks you to, okay, this is my therapy, at least right now, because sometimes we change. Now we need more, breath work than we did yoga. Now we need to focus more on different things and different aspects. So I love the fact that you are putting this out there, because not many people know about it.
that's true. Yes, not many people know about it. And I feel like, integrative medicine is, something that's coming, into people's lives. You've got your naturopath, and you can bring all of these things together and create a health team that works for you. And like you said, some days yoga is what you need. You need to stretch, you need to breathe. And other days you just need, your body just needs to be heard, in the sense of, we can just sit and we can listen, and your body will tell us exactly what it needs, and it will find that path on its own. We are incredible self-healing beings.
Yes. Then also being able to seek a practitioner like yourself, to help, because I think a lot of us will suffer at home alone, because we feel like the doctors didn't work, the physical therapy didn't work, the chiropractic didn't work. I, give up. I'll just suffer at home. And this is a little too woohoo for people to understand, that they're like, I'm not going to, I'll sit at home and try to maybe do this stuff myself. But in reality, having another person there to just release and let go and put yourself in their hands, and trust that they're going to help me. I'm in a safe space. Like, look at that room. That room is very inviting, very warm. And you walk in that room, that's the first feeling that I got, was this is a very safe space. I feel like I can lay on this table and relax and really just let go and allow someone else to help me. As humans, we're so used to doing things ourselves, we won't allow others to help. So when you have that inviting space where it's like, okay, it's safe, it's a safe space, you can allow that.
Well, and a biodynamic practitioner is the facilitator of a person engaging their own healing mechanism. Biodynamics is not about bringing anything from the outside in. It's about sitting with your self-healing capacity. We are all designed to be able to regenerate. Now, obviously, when you're being formed inside of your mother, the force that's generating you there is a different blueprint than the force that's generating or regenerating you now. So we, listen to that force, that underlying force. And in biodynamics, we call that primary respiration, because it's the breath that's breathing us underneath all of the, things that we can actually feel, regularly. So like, your breathing, respiration, your heartbeat, the way we blink our eyes, all of those movements that we're accustomed to, this is the foundation of all of that.
Yes, I love that. That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Well, I think we're just about out of time here. So I want you to have a chance to tell everyone where they can find you. What's your website? You obviously have a very beautiful space there where you take appointments, one-on-one appointments. And your social medias.
So I have a website. It's www.sacralsoul.com. Now, soul is not like the soul on the inside. It's SOL, like soul, like the sun. So sacralsoul.com. And then same thing on Instagram, it's Sacral Soul. And if you are looking for a biodynamic practitioner, you can go to the Biodynamic Craniosacral Therapy Association of North America. It's a very long title. But if you look that up online in whatever your favorite search engine is, you can go on there and type in your zip code, and it will help you find a biodynamic practitioner that's closest to you.
That's in your state, or where.
Correct.
I'm guessing this is all over, so country even.
Yes, it's all over the world. It's actually, if I remember correctly, it's covered under insurance overseas. So we're
Really?
actually, yes, we're working towards that here. So I'm on the board of the association.
Behind.
Very behind. So I'm on the board of the Association for North America, and I'm the chairperson of a case study committee, and we're putting together a case study to hopefully have this biodynamics under the umbrella of complementary medicine, so that we can also be covered under insurance and make it more accessible for everyone.
That is awesome, because that's one thing that has always bothered me, is that this kind of medicine is not offered under insurance. So it's like a lot of people will go with what's covered under insurance because they can't afford to go to a practitioner like you or I. So they'll go to the therapist, and then they just give up. When nothing else works, they just give up. So the fact that it's covered overseas does not really surprise me that much, because they're so far ahead of us than in the United States. But the fact that we're getting there, I'm so excited to hear that. That's
Yes, I'm very excited about it also. To be part of this is really huge, and I'm meeting some incredible people in our community that, I hadn't met before. So we're all working together, and, this is good for everyone. The more healthy people we have in the world, the better off we are.
more people, like if it's covered under insurance as well, you're paying for that insurance. You should get the help that you need, regardless of who you choose to go to seek that help. So that's awesome. I love that. That made my day, hearing that might possibly be offered within the insurance.
We're on that road.
Yes, that's exciting. Well, thank you so much for being here today, Evelyn. I love and appreciate you. I adore you and everything you do. And yes, I was supposed to come in for a session this week, but it's spring break for my kids. So last minute projects that we're doing, everything. So I'm going to come in there, and I'll see you soon. I'm very excited and looking forward to my session.
Thanks for having me, and I look forward to having you on the table.
All right, awesome. Well, we'll have to have you on again sometime. I love you. Have a wonderful day. And make sure to stay tuned for next week's episode of Holy Chits.